Ambassador Alara Matthews adjusted her formal diplomatic uniform as the delegation approached the massive crystalline structure known as the Hall of First Light. The Verlian home world shimmered beneath twin suns, its atmosphere casting an amber glow over the landscape. "Remember," Director Holloway whispered beside her, "the Verlians have strict protocols about personal space. Keep at least an arm's length distance at all times." Alara nodded. After years of working her way through diplomatic ranks, this assignment was her chance to make history, the first official diplomatic contact between humanity and the technologically advanced Verlian civilization. She'd studied their language for months, memorized their customs, and prepared for every contingency. Or so she thought. The Verlian welcoming party emerged from the hall, their tall, slender forms moving with fluid grace. Their skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to pulse with their emotions. Leading them was a commanding figure whose skin glowed with intricate blue patterns, markings Alara recognized as denoting high military rank. "Greetings, representatives of Earth," the leader spoke in perfectly accented English. "I am Commander Krell, appointed by the High Council to establish formal relations with your species." Alara stepped forward and performed the traditional Verlian greeting, a slight bow with open palms displayed. "Commander Krell, we are honored by your welcome. I am Ambassador Alara Matthews and this is Director Holloway." The formal introductions proceeded smoothly until a small tremor shook the ground, common on this tectonically active planet but unexpected for the human delegation. Alara lost her footing on the unfamiliar terrain and instinctively reached out to steady herself. Her hand connected with Commander Krell's forearm. The moment her skin touched his, a visible wave of luminescence rippled across his body. Gasps erupted from the Verlian delegation. Commander Krell stood perfectly still, his vertical pupils dilating as he stared at the point of contact. Alara withdrew her hand immediately. "I apologize for the breach of protocol." The Verlian officials were already murmuring among themselves in their native language, too rapid for Alara's translator to process. Commander Krell's expression remained unreadable to human eyes, but the intensity of his gaze unnerved her. "Ambassador," Director Holloway whispered urgently, "what happened?" Before she could respond, an older Verlian stepped forward from their delegation. The markings on his face identified him as a legal advisor. "The contact has been witnessed and recorded," he announced formally. "By the ancient laws of Veril, binding since the first dawn, a claim has been established." Commander Krell finally spoke, his voice carrying a new resonance. "Ambassador Matthews, your touch has initiated a bonding claim under our most sacred laws. This is unexpected." "A bonding claim?" Alara's heart raced as she tried to process the implications. "I don't understand." "It means," Krell explained, his luminescent patterns pulsing with intensity, "that by our oldest and most binding laws you have established a formal claim as my mate. Such claims, once witnessed, cannot be dismissed without significant legal proceedings." The human delegation erupted in confused whispers while Director Holloway looked stricken. Alara felt the blood drain from her face as she realized that with one accidental touch, she had potentially compromised the entire diplomatic mission. "There must be some accommodation for cultural differences," she managed to say, struggling to maintain her diplomatic composure. "Perhaps," Commander Krell replied, "but the laws of bonding predate even our space travel. They are foundational to our society." His bioluminescent patterns shifted to a softer hue. "It seems, Ambassador Matthews, that our negotiations have become considerably more personal." "This is unprecedented." Director Holloway paced the floor of the human delegation's quarters. "One accidental touch and suddenly you're mated to their military commander. This could derail everything we've worked for." Alara sat stiffly in her chair, reviewing Verlian legal texts on her datapad. Her diplomatic training had prepared her for many scenarios, but not this. "According to their laws, physical contact initiates a preliminary bonding when witnessed by official representatives," she explained. "It's considered an expression of intent." "Intent, you tripped," Holloway threw up his hands. "Their culture doesn't recognize accidents in matters of bonding," Alara said. "The intent is presumed by the act itself." A soft chime indicated someone at their door. A Verlian attendant bowed as the door slid open. "Ambassador Matthews, Commander Krell requests your presence for the traditional first meal of understanding." Holloway shook his head emphatically. "Absolutely not. We need to speak with the High Council first." "The Council cannot intervene in bonding matters," the attendant replied. "It is considered a personal domain, sacred and separate from political concerns." Alara stood, smoothing her uniform. "I'll go. Perhaps I can resolve this directly with the commander." The attendant led her through crystalline corridors to a private chamber where Commander Krell waited. The room was bathed in soft amber light, and a low table was set with unfamiliar foods. Ambassador, Krell gestured to a cushion across from him, please join me. Alara sat carefully, maintaining her diplomatic demeanor. Commander, there's been a misunderstanding. On Earth, accidental physical contact holds no significance. Krell's bioluminescent patterns shifted in what Alara recognized as contemplation. Yet in my culture, it is the touch itself that matters, not the intention behind it. Our ancestors believed that true compatibility reveals itself through instinct, not premeditation. But surely exceptions can be made for interspecies interactions, she pressed. The situation is complex. Krell selected a translucent fruit and placed it before her. This is your first time on a Verlian world. You cannot be expected to understand all our ways, yet our laws remain our laws. So there's no way to undo this claim. Krell's patterns dimmed slightly. There are provisions for dissolution, but they require a formal rejection period of 1 lunar cycle, during which we must spend prescribed time together to confirm incompatibility. Alara's heart sank. A month of what exactly? Shared meals, cultural exchange, cohabitation, Krell explained. It is meant to ensure that bonds are not broken hastily. Cohabitation, Alara nearly choked on the water she'd been sipping. Separate quarters within a shared dwelling, Krell clarified, his patterns flickering in what might have been amusement. The purpose is to learn each other's habits and patterns. Alara considered the diplomatic implications. A month of close contact with a high-ranking Verlian could provide invaluable cultural insights, but it risked further entanglement. If I participate in this rejection period, what happens afterward? If true incompatibility is established, the claim dissolves with no dishonor to either party, Krell said. His luminescence pulsed once brightly. But I must warn you, Ambassador, the rejection process sometimes reveals unexpected compatibilities instead. Alara met his gaze, noticing for the first time the complex patterns within his eyes. I'll take that risk, Commander, for diplomatic relations. For diplomatic relations, Krell agreed, though something in his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced that would remain their only motivation. 2 weeks into the rejection period, Alara found herself increasingly comfortable in Commander Krell's presence. Their shared dwelling, a beautiful structure of living crystal overlooking a bioluminescent forest, had become less alien to her with each passing day. You still sleep with the environmental controls set to human preferences, Krell observed as they shared morning nutrition in their common area. Does Verlian atmosphere remain uncomfortable for you? Actually, I've been adjusting the settings gradually, Alara admitted. I find I'm adapting to your world's conditions better than expected. Something akin to pleasure rippled across Krell's luminescent patterns. In their time together, Alara had become adept at reading these biological expressions, his equivalent of human facial expressions. Adaptation is a remarkable ability, Krell said. It's one that our species share. They had fallen into a routine, mornings spent discussing cultural differences, afternoons attending to their respective duties, evenings exploring Verlian art, music, or cuisine. Tonight, Krell had promised to show her something special. Are you ready for our excursion? He asked as dusk approached. Alara followed him to a private transport vessel that lifted off silently, skimming over the crystalline cityscape before heading toward the unoccupied wilderness. They landed in a clearing, surrounded by towering structures that resembled trees but glowed with internal light. This is the Heart Grove, Krell explained as he helped her from the vessel, another touch, but now one that sent a pleasant warmth through her rather than panic. Few outsiders have seen it. It's beautiful, Alara breathed, watching patterns of light pulse through the grove in coordinated waves. These aren't plants as you understand them, Krell said, leading her closer. They're semi-sentient networked organisms. They respond to emotional energy. As they walked among the luminous structures, the patterns around them shifted, responding to their presence. When they stopped at the center of the grove, Krell hesitantly extended his hand. If you're willing, he said, there's something I'd like to show you. This time, Alara didn't hesitate to take his hand. The moment their skin connected, the entire grove erupted in brilliant patterns of light, swirling around them in complex, beautiful formations. What's happening? She whispered, awed by the display. They're responding to our compatibility, Krell said, his voice unusually soft. The patterns reflect the harmony between our bioenergetic fields. Alara looked from their joined hands to his face. Is this why touching is so significant in your culture? We evolved as a species that can sense emotional and physical compatibility through touch, Krell explained. What your people might call chemistry, we experience as a tangible, measurable phenomenon. Standing there surrounded by responsive light, Alara felt something shift within her. This wasn't just a diplomatic obligation anymore. There was something genuinely compelling about Krell, his thoughtfulness, his patience in explaining his world, the respectful distance he maintained despite their supposed bond. The rejection period is half complete, she said quietly. What happens if I'm not certain rejection is what I want anymore? Krell's patterns pulsed with an intensity she hadn't seen before. Then we would have much to discuss, Alara, about expectations, about possibilities between our worlds. As the lights of the grove swirled around them, Alara realized that in trying to navigate this cultural misunderstanding, she had stumbled into something far more complex and far more real than she could have anticipated. This is completely unacceptable, Admiral Reeves barked through the secure communication channel. Ambassador Matthews, you were sent to establish diplomatic relations, not romantic ones. Alara maintained her composure despite the Admiral's tone. Sir, my interaction with Commander Krell has provided unprecedented insight into Verlian society. And now the Verlian High Council is suggesting that your bond grants them special negotiation privileges. The Admiral's face reddened. They're using this situation as leverage. Director Holloway, standing beside her, intervened. With respect, Admiral, it's more nuanced than that. The Verlians view Ambassador Matthews as a bridge between our cultures now. A bridge created by an accidental touch, Reeves scoffed. After the communication ended, Alara pressed her fingers to her temples. They don't understand what's happening here. Do you? Holloway asked pointedly. The question hung in the air as Alara prepared for her meeting with the Verlian Council. Krell was waiting outside their quarters, his usual composed self, though his patterns revealed tension. The Council is concerned about the political implications of our situation, he explained as they walked. Some see it as an opportunity, others as a complication. On Earth, it's definitely seen as a complication, Alara admitted. When they entered the council chamber, Alara immediately sensed the divided atmosphere. Half the council members' patterns displayed receptive blues and greens, the others pulsed with cautious oranges. Elder Navin, the council leader, addressed them directly. Commander Krell, Ambassador Matthews, your unexpected bond has created a unique circumstance. Some suggest it grants humanity privileged status in our trade negotiations. And others, Alara asked. Others fear it compromises Commander Krell's judgment in security matters, another council member stated bluntly. Krell's patterns flashed with indignation. My duty to Veril remains absolute. Yet your patterns reveal deepening attachment to the human ambassador, the council member countered. Alara felt a surge of protectiveness. Commander Krell has been nothing but professional. Your defense of him only confirms our concerns, the council member interrupted. Elder Navin raised a hand for silence. The rejection period ends in 3 days. If you choose to dissolve the claim, these concerns become moot. If not, he left the implications hanging. Later, in a private garden, Alara and Krell finally spoke freely. Your career, your position with your people is at risk, Krell said quietly. As is yours, Alara replied. The rejection period was supposed to give us clarity, but it's only made things more complicated. Krell's patterns dimmed to a soft glow. I cannot deny what the council observed. My attachment to you has grown beyond diplomatic interest. Alara's heart raced. Mine too, she admitted, but our duties sometimes conflict with our personal desires, Krell finished. I've studied human diplomatic history. Personal connections often complicate political relations. But sometimes, Alara said thoughtfully, they create opportunities that wouldn't otherwise exist. Krell looked at her curiously. What are you suggesting? That perhaps this isn't a choice between duty and personal feeling, Alara said, a plan forming in her mind. Perhaps it's an opportunity to demonstrate how our species can truly understand each other. The Council needs to see that our connection strengthens both our positions rather than weakening them, Alara said firmly. We need to show them what we've learned. As they formulated their approach for the final council hearing, Alara realized she was no longer thinking about the rejection period ending. Instead, she was planning for what might come after, if they could navigate the diplomatic storm their accidental touch had created. The Hall of Celestial Judgment fell silent as Elder Navin closed the formal review of the bonding claim between Commander Krell and Ambassador Alara Matthews. 3 days of testimony and deliberation had led to this moment. The rejection period has concluded, Elder Navin announced. As is tradition, the claimants must now declare their intention. All eyes turned to Alara and Krell, standing side by side before the council. By Verlian tradition, Alara, as the one who initiated the claim, would speak first. She took a deep breath. When I came to Veril, I sought to build understanding between our worlds. I never imagined it would happen through personal connection rather than formal diplomacy. The council members' patterns flickered with interest as she continued. I've learned that Verlian bonding isn't merely a legal status, but a recognition of genuine compatibility, physical, intellectual, emotional. Commander Krell has shown me the depth of your culture's wisdom in recognizing such connections. She turned to face Krell directly. I choose not to reject the claim. A wave of luminescence rippled through the chamber as the Verlians reacted. Now it was Krell's turn to speak. In Ambassador Matthews, I've found a mind that challenges and complements my own, he said, his patterns glowing with a brilliant clarity. Our differences have proved to be strengths rather than obstacles. He extended his hand, palm up, a formal gesture of acceptance. I too choose to honor the claim. When Alara placed her hand in his, the chamber erupted in a chorus of harmonic tones, a traditional Verlian celebration of bonding. Elder Navin's patterns shimmered with what Alara now recognized as pleased surprise. The council acknowledges your mutual acceptance. There remains the matter of your respective duties to your peoples. We have a proposal, Alara said confidently. Together, they presented their vision, a joint diplomatic position, with Alara and Krell serving as co-ambassadors between their worlds. Their unique bond would become not a liability but an asset, living proof that humans and Verlians could find profound common ground. Your proposal has merit, Elder Navin conceded after the council conferred. It will require approval from Earth authorities as well. I believe they'll see the diplomatic advantages, Alara said, thinking of the detailed brief she'd already prepared for Admiral Reeves. Later, as Alara and Krell stood on the balcony of what was now truly their shared dwelling, watching the twin suns set over the crystalline landscape, Krell spoke thoughtfully. Your accidental touch has changed the course of both our lives. Alara smiled, leaning against him. Perhaps your ancestors were right. True compatibility reveals itself through instinct rather than planning. There is still much for us to learn about each other, Krell said, his patterns shifting to the deep blue that Alara had come to recognize as contentment. Earth customs of bonding are quite different from ours. We'll figure it out, Alara said. After all, we have the best of both worlds to draw from. As night fell, the bioluminescent forest below them began to glow, mirroring the stars appearing overhead. Krell gently traced a pattern on Alara's palm, a Verlian gesture of intimacy she now understood. To new horizons, he said softly. Alara interlaced her fingers with his, watching as their joined hands created patterns of light neither of them could make alone. To new horizons, she agreed, and all the worlds they might connect. In the gentle glow of their shared light, Alara reflected on how one accidental touch had led to the most meaningful connection of her life, and perhaps to a new era of understanding between their worlds. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.